At 6, the fuel situation is starting to improve, says the Prime Minister, after days of empty petrol pumps. The long queues have continued to build up today as motorists search for fuel. Filling up the tankers, Boris Johnson insists the fuel problems are stabilising and people should be confident.
I would just really urge everybody to just go about their business in the normal way and fill up in the normal way when you really need it.
But Labour has accused the government of failing to deal with the fuel shortages. Also tonight, the Liverpool legend and England World Cup winner Roger Hunt has died at the age of 83. A British veteran who lost 3 limbs in Afghanistan reflects on his time in Helmand province now that it's back in Taliban hands.
We all have our secrets. We just didn't get to yours yet.
And a little later than expected, but Bond is finally back. No Time to Die has its world premiere in London tonight. We'll be on the red carpet.
And coming up on the BBC News channel, a date in Paris for Manchester City in the Champions League. They take on PSG, the side they knocked out in last season's semi-finals.
Good evening and welcome to the BBC News at 6. The Prime Minister says the fuel situation is starting to improve with more deliveries arriving on petrol station forecourts. In his first public comments since long queues began last week, Boris Johnson urged motorists to go about their business in the normal way and only fill up when they need to. And he insisted there wasn't a need for key workers to be prioritised. Fuel retailers also say there are signs that the situation is easing. But today, many people have continued to experience long queues at petrol stations across parts of the UK, with demand still overwhelming supply. Labour has accused the government of failing to deal with the shortages. Our business editor, Simon Jack, has the latest.
Scenes like this in Telford have become commonplace in the last few days. Anxious drivers responding to reports of fuel shortages, then fueling the very shortage they're anxious about. It's a circular crisis of confidence that is having real-world consequences. Debbie Moulton was verbally abused when filling up petrol cans to keep her social care staff on the road, as some have been delayed waiting to refuel.
We had a member of staff go out at 5:30 this morning. Her first call was at 7 because she needed to fuel. She got to her the client at 7:45, so she was 45 minutes late for that particular person who could not get out of bed until we were there.
Hello, I'm Kasia.
So they're left uncomfortable, in bed, needing their meds.
The government estimates that 16% of stations are fully stocked, compared with just 10% at the weekend, far below the 40% considered normal. The Prime Minister today urged calm.
We now are starting to see the situation improve. We're hearing from industry that supplies are coming back onto the forecourts in the normal way. And I would just really urge everybody to just go about their business in the normal way and fill up in the normal way when you really need it.
At the moment, rocketing demand is overwhelming an industry that, like others, is grappling with a shortage of lorry drivers.
We've had an acute HGV driver shortage for months. That's made supply chains of all kinds super fragile, vulnerable to spikes in consumer demand. And that's why this station is closed and there are shortages at many others around the country. But what do you do to solve a crisis whose main cause is the behaviour of we the consumer?
The last fuel crisis in September 2000 offered some lessons, according to a top civil servant involved then. He said lecturing people was the wrong approach.
And we get industry saying, behave yourselves, and that doesn't solve anybody's problem. What needs to happen is people need to be persuaded and need to understand they need to take part in a collective effort, and it won't be a quick fix. Then they might start to calm down.
Beyond the crisis, the bigger picture is not a pretty one for motorists. Surging global demand for oil means petrol prices, already at an 8-year high, are expected to move even higher. Even when the queues are gone, those price pressures will remain.
And not getting at the heart of it, which means not just this industry, but others remain vulnerable to the kind of shocks we're seeing at the moment.
Simon Jack, thank you. Well, let's talk to our political correspondent, Nick Eardley, who is in Westminster. And the Prime Minister, after a number of days, has finally broken his silence on this.
Yeah, Sophie, the government has spent the day trying to tell us all that the worst of this situation may now be over. And we had the Prime Minister's first public comments on this in the last couple of hours, emphasising the government's message that if people just buy petrol as normal, this situation will pass a lot quicker. But it's a sign of some of the challenges Simon was just talking about in the supply chain, that Boris Johnson's also talking about putting preparations in place to make sure that there aren't more supply chain issues, be it petrol, food or something else, in the run-up to Christmas. Now, the political criticism has been growing today. We've had Labour's leader, Sir Keir Starmer, saying that the government should have been prepared, it should have seen this coming. He wants key workers to be given priority at petrol stations when it comes to jumping to the front of queues. That's something the government doesn't want to do. The hope the Prime Minister and other ministers have tonight is that the reassurances they're giving will start to ease the problems, not solve them overnight. This won't happen in the next few hours. It may take a few days. But the hope in government is that the worst of this is now past.
Thank you. A man has been remanded in custody after appearing in court charged with the murder of the primary school teacher Sabina Nessa. The 28-year-old was killed as she walked to meet a friend in southeast London. 36-year-old Corrie was arrested in Eastbourne on Sunday. Our Home Affairs correspondent June Kelly reports.
It's now more than a week since Sabina Nessa vanished as she made her way to a bar in this square in Kidbrooke in southeast London. Over the weekend, the police investigation suddenly switched to Eastbourne in East Sussex. And today there was a first court appearance for a man arrested there. He's accused of the murder of Sabina Nessa on Friday the 17th of September. Corrie is an Albanian national. His lawyer told the court he didn't need an interpreter for today's brief hearing. He gave his name, address and date of birth. He's charged with murdering Sabina Nessa in Cater Park in Kidbrooke. Her body was discovered here the day after she went missing.
The defendant's lawyer said his client had indicated that he would be pleading not guilty to the murder charge. This is not a formal entering of a plea. That will come at a later stage in the legal process. The next hearing in this case will be on Thursday, when the defendant is due to appear at the Old Bailey. June Kelly, BBC News at Willesden Magistrates Court.
Let's have a look now at the latest government coronavirus figures, and there were 34,526 new infections recorded in the latest 24-hour period. On average, 34,881 new cases were reported per day in the last week. 167 deaths were reported in the latest 24-hour period. That's people who died within 28 days of a positive COVID-19 test. On average, in the past week, 131 deaths were announced every day. As for vaccinations, 89.7% of people aged 16 or over have had their first jab, while 82.4% are now double vaccinated. The Labour leader, Sir Keir Starmer, says winning a general election is more important than party unity. Speaking during a turbulent conference, which has already included the resignation of a shadow cabinet member, he said Labour is a broad church and there will always be disagreements. But he says the party should get behind his leadership and focus on winning a general election. He's been speaking to our political editor, Laura Kuensberg, in Brighton.
Look right, left, then right again, maybe. Keir Starmer's changing Labour's direction. But there are howls of protest here at where he's going. Is he now in charge?
Absolutely. We had 3 days of build-up to 3 very, very important decisions in our party that dealt with anti-Semitism and closed the door on a dark chapter in our party. We also took other action to refocus the party on the country. I think that if there's tough decisions to be taken, they should be taken swiftly and properly, and we've done that.
But some of your people are unhappy about that change. One of your team quit yesterday, saying the party had never been so divided. Is that wrong?
He is wrong about that, but my focus is on how we get Labour into a position to win a general election. There will be some people who don't agree with those changes. I understand that. We're a broad church in the Labour Party, but I'm not going to be deflected.
So those people who disagree with you should put up, shut up, or go?
We should all accept them, abide by them, and join together in our common intention that we need a Labour government.
I mean, you sprung rule changes on the unions, and they would normally have expected to be consulted. You've abandoned what people believed was a commitment, a personal commitment from you for nationalisation. And also, even though once upon a time you posed with a banner saying McDonald's workers should be paid £15 an hour, you're now saying that the party shouldn't be saying that. So aren't people on the left actually quite entitled to be cross about some of the decisions you've made?
The world has changed since they were made, but now the question is, how do we apply them in the reflected circumstance we find going into election? But the most important pledge I made was that I would turn our Labour Party into a party that would be fit for government.
But look who's turned up in Brighton too. The darling of the left still draws and enjoys the attention. But Jeremy Corbyn's influence is blowing through.
What's more important to you, unity or winning?
Winning. Winning a general election. I didn't come into politics to vote over and over again in Parliament and lose and then tweet about it. I came into politics to go into government to change millions of lives for the better.
You have got a huge moment tomorrow when you make your first speech in person as party leader at a conference like this. What will be going through your mind as you walk up onto the stage?
I can't wait to go on that stage and be in front of a crowd. The difference between last year and this is huge. Tomorrow I'll be in front of thousands of our members and supporters, and I'm so looking forward to it.
Looking forward to looking out from this stage, hoping that you might take a serious look at him. Laura Kunzberg, BBC News, Brighton.
The train company, Southeastern, which operates one of the busiest networks in the country between London, Kent and Sussex, has been stripped of its rail franchise after it failed to repay £25 million it owed to the taxpayer. The government will take over the running of services from the middle of next month. It's just one of a number of UK rail franchises that has had to be placed in public ownership in recent years. Our transport correspondent Caroline Davis has more.
It's not unusual for train lines to be renationalised. What is rare is when it's about trust. This morning, the government announced that it would be taking over running Southeastern services after it found that £25 million had not been declared by the operator.
The company itself is taking a large number of steps, and I'm sure they'll be saying more about it. As far as I was concerned, no matter what steps they took, to breach the confidence of the public, to deliberately conceal payments due back to the taxpayer is entirely unacceptable.
The operator of last resort will take over the services from the 17th of October. This could sound like worrying news to passengers who use Southeastern services into stations like Victoria. But the government say that services and fares won't be affected, and nor will frontline staff. The company that runs Southeastern, Go Ahead, have said that they've now repaid the £25 million. This morning they said they were naturally disappointed with the decision. Go Ahead's chairwoman, Claire Hollingsworth, said, "We recognise that mistakes have been made and we sincerely apologise to the Department for Transport. We're working constructively with the DfT towards a settlement of this matter." The company's stock price fell more than 12% this morning. Labour have said that the government must bring rail franchises back into public ownership.
This is another example of how the franchise model just doesn't work. The government have been warned time and time again that it's open to letting passengers down, it's not value for money for the taxpayer, and that we need to take urgent action to take public control of our railways.
Other operators like Northern and Virgin Trains East Coast have previously been renationalised, but it is rare to do it for this reason.
We've had franchises collapse, be removed because of either financial problems, or they ran out of money, or they weren't doing the job well enough. This is pretty much the first time it's happened with the allegation of a breach of trust, and that is serious.
The way the trains are run has changed dramatically during the pandemic, and today the government has shown that they're following a different track. Caroline Davis, BBC News.
The time is just after 6:15, our top story this evening. After days of empty fuel pumps and queues on the garage forecourts, the Prime Minister says there are signs the situation is starting to improve, and still to come.
And I'm live on the red carpet at the world premiere of the new James Bond film, No Time to Die, Daniel Craig's final movie as 007.
Coming up in Sports Day on the BBC News Channel, it's a shocker for Lancashire as wickets tumble in cricket's showpiece Bob Willis Trophy against Warwickshire. Fast bowler Craig Miles doing the damage with 5 wickets.
The vast majority of British military personnel who were killed in Afghanistan died in Helmand province, the scene of some of the fiercest fighting during the 20-year conflict. As we saw last night in a report by Jeremy Bowen, the area has been devastated by the war. But what's it like for the British service personnel who fought there for so long, seeing Helmand and Afghanistan now firmly back in the hands of the Taliban? Caroline Hawley has been talking to John White, a former member of the Royal Marines who suffered life-changing injuries when he was there.
This must have been one of the last photos taken of me before my injuries.
John White was 27 at the time and in command of 30 men. It was his second tour of Afghanistan. Sangin in 2010 was the most dangerous place in the country for British troops.
Yeah, it's definitely the scariest place I've been for any amount of time. You know, if the kids are around you, generally it's okay. But as soon as the kids see you and start running, you know that that's an area where they don't want you there.
At the time, what was the mission?
There, so it's kind of this twofold thing. There's kind of, if you like, the fight against the Taliban, but then there's the undermining them by supporting the locals as best you can. Overall, you just had this sense that it was never quite enough. It was hard to see, solid progress.
John risked his life to take down a Taliban flag, but it was an unseen danger that got him and so many others. On a routine patrol, he stepped on a Taliban bomb.
For about 2 minutes, I was trying to give myself first aid, waiting for the guys to get to me.
And you knew it was bad?
Yeah, I had a pretty good idea. I knew my legs were gone. I didn't realise how high the amputations were. And I remember the first time the sheets were removed when I was in hospital being quite shocked by the fact that both legs had gone above the knee.
Over the past 11 years, he's had more than 20 operations.
I really liked my feet. I know it sounds like a stupid thing to say, but everything I did in my life was on my feet.
John now travels around the UK giving workshops on leadership and resilience.
I'm pretty happy with where I am now, who I am now, what I've got going on in my life now. I can put my hand on heart and say that I went out there and did the best job I could do, genuinely tried to make a difference. But it's obvious now is you can always connect the dots looking back, and yeah, it's clear to see now that it was a doomed project.
Because?
Because ultimately there was enough of their society that didn't want us there, that didn't want to have our way of life forced upon them. I'm very accepting of the past, and that's been really important for me to be able to let go of all that anger and transfer that sort of same attitude and philosophy across all aspects of my life, really.
John White, who served with the Royal Marines, reflecting on his time in Afghanistan. House prices have soared in some parts of the UK during the pandemic as more and more people decide to move out of towns and cities. In some coastal and rural areas, prices are up by around 20%. It has meant that locals looking to rent are increasingly being priced out of the market. John Kay reports from North Devon.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Let agreed. There's one property out of all of these that's to rent.
Lauren and Sarah Jane have been looking for a rental property for 6 months.
How do they expect working people to find a house?
You tell me.
We'll be all right though, babe.
We will.
We'll be all right. We'll find somewhere.
The pandemic means more people want to move to places like North Devon, and that has pushed up prices. Landlords can now make more money renting to holiday makers and through short-term lets.
1,100 per month. That is about our wages.
They both work full-time. Sarah Jane in a call centre, Lauren in a factory. Buying a place has long been impossible for them, but now renting is too.
No pets.
And there are thousands of people ahead of them on the council waiting list.
Sometimes I want to throw my laptop.
We're packing up and we don't even know where we're going yet.
If we don't find anywhere, we could actually be staying in our car.
They've got to be out in 3 weeks.
It's scary, babe.
The landlord needs the place back for their own family.
It's heart-wrenching to think that you potentially might not have a home, and there's so many homes in the area and they're being used just for the summer so people can get thousands and thousands of pounds, and there's people like me and my wife that live here, that have lived here all our lives, that have worked here, that have put into the community, and now there's a real potential that we're going to have to leave the place that we like because we can't afford to live here anymore.
It's been quite overwhelming, to be honest.
Emma has started a Facebook group for local people. It now has 2,000 members.
People I know have been living in sort of converted sheds because they can't find anywhere to rent.
Living in a shed?
A converted shed, yeah. I mean, not being funny, but at one point my parents were talking about, whether they could put a bed in their garage for me.
I'm excited. Are you excited?
Tonight, some hope. Lauren and Sarah Jane have heard about a new rental property that's not on the market yet.
I'm excited. I'm really excited. I've got a really good feeling.
Nothing signed.
I just want to view it already.
They haven't even seen it. But finally, a chance. John Kay, BBC News, North Devon.
Boris Johnson has promised to appoint a chair for the official COVID inquiry before Christmas after meeting relatives of those who've died with the virus. The Prime Minister told members of the COVID-19 Bereaved Families for Justice group that it was critical to learn lessons, but that right now civil servants should continue to focus on tackling the pandemic. The former glamour model and TV personality Katie Price has been arrested amid reports she was involved in a car crash in Sussex in the early hours of this morning. The Sun newspaper has reported that she was taken to hospital after the incident. Ms Price is currently serving a 6-month driving ban. Her family have released a statement saying they have been concerned about her well-being and overall mental health for some time. Scotland's new vaccine passport system will not be enforced until more than 2 weeks after it's introduced. People going to nightclubs and many other large events will need proof they have had 2 doses of vaccine from 5 a.m. on Friday. But the First Minister, Nicola Sturgeon, said there would now be a grace period until the 18th of October. The Liverpool legend Roger Hunt, who helped England win the 1966 World Cup, has died at the age of 83. He signed for Liverpool in 1958 and became one of the club's highest goal scorers in history. Our sports correspondent Natalie Perks looks back at the life of the man Liverpool fans called Sir Roger.
Sir Geoff Hurst's hat-trick might have won the World Cup final in 1966. But it was Roger Hunt's goals that helped get England there. It was at Liverpool where Hunt's star ascended. After making his debut in 1959, he went on to help them to 2 league titles. His 285 goals for the Reds made him the 2nd highest scorer in the club's history. Tonight the team will wear black armbands in their Champions League match against Porto. Liverpool's manager Jurgen Klopp dubbed Hunt a legend, and former striker John Aldridge agrees.
Roger was like a demigod. The Kop just absolutely adored him. All the Liverpool fans adored him. The goals he scored, the goals he created, the work he put in for the team. He was an awesome player.
In 1965, Hunt helped Liverpool to their first FA Cup win, and at the same time his international career was also blossoming. By the '66 World Cup he was a staple in the England team. He scored 3 goals in the group stage, but was still uncertain whether he'd play in the final, until manager Sir Alf Ramsey broke the news at an unlikely venue.
We went to the cinema on the Friday night, and just as we're getting off the coach at the cinema, Alf took me on one side and said that I'd be playing the next day, which was fantastic news. The World Cup final really was something you don't imagine.
Hunt played for Liverpool and England until 1969, and after hanging up his boots, Hunt joined his family's haulage company. His England exploits were finally rewarded with an MBE in 2000, but he'll always be a Sir to the Anfield faithful and one of the most treasured strikers in English football.
Roger Hunt, who has died at the age of 83. Now, tonight is the world premiere of the latest James Bond film. It should have been released 18 months ago, but the pandemic has meant that No Time to Die was delayed again and again. But it's here now, finally. And our entertainment correspondent, Lisa Mazimba, is at the Royal Albert Hall in London, where the stars have been gathering on the red carpet and still are. Lisa.
Yes, tonight's event is intended to send a big message that not only is Bond back, but that cinema is too. That's what they would like audience to feel that this film represents. Now, if you look at the statistics, if any film can do it, it's probably a Bond one. The last 2 movies, Skyfall and Spectre, are among the highest grossing movies ever at the UK box office. And of course, they're hoping to build on that with a film which none of us have been allowed to see so far, that they say will firmly place Bond in the 21st century with the depiction of female characters, but that is also filled with, of course, trademark James Bond action. This film has, of course, had a more troubled history than most. It lost its original director, Danny Boyle, and then ended up being delayed, as you say, several times because of the pandemic. But it is Daniel Craig's 5th and final movie as 007, which will provide a lot more interest, possibly, for people. And I spoke to him here on the red carpet earlier about how he feels about coming to his end of his time as the world's most famous secret agent.
Definitely, it's a mixture of feelings. It's like I'm incredibly proud of the work that we've done and the movies we've made and what we've achieved. And of course, it's tinged with some sadness, but it's time to move on.
So a film that the industry and audiences have all nervously got their eye on. The first reviews will come out at midnight. Of course, cinema will survive COVID, but how quickly it recovers from the pandemic could well depend on the reception from this movie, the final movie for Daniel Craig as 007.
Lisa Mazimba in London, thank you. Let's have a look at the weather now with Ben Richard. A lot of umbrellas out there on the red carpet tonight.
Yeah, a fair few, I should think, Sophie. The weather may have left you shaken and stirred today, actually, with some pretty heavy rain in places. This was the scene for a weather watcher in Cumbria earlier on, and some strong winds. Good news for the surfers, at least on the west coast of Wales, but some big waves crashing into the shoreline there. Through tomorrow, bit of a chance to draw breath, something a little calmer, drier, brighter, but still quite breezy and still feeling cool. But this is what's going on out there at the moment. This is the radar picture over the last few hours. This band of heavy rain working eastwards, currently stretching from southeast Scotland down into northeast England, the Midlands, parts of the West Country. That'll be pushing eastwards as we go through the evening, clearing overnight to leave clearer skies behind, but some showers feeding in from the west. It'll stay quite breezy, and it is going to be quite a chilly night. Temperatures in the towns and cities, certainly in many of them, getting down into single digits. Some spots in the countryside down to around 4 degrees. So a cool start, to say the least, tomorrow morning, but a bright start for most of us. And yes, there will be some showers, especially through Northern Ireland, southwest Scotland, northern England, 1 or 2 into the Midlands, East Anglia and the southeast, but not too many showers. And a lot of dry weather, some spells of sunshine. It will stay breezy and it will stay cool. Top temperatures between 13 and 16 degrees, and it will turn chilly for a time on Wednesday evening. But into Thursday morning, milder conditions arrive from the west because of this weather system, which will bring cloud and rain. Some strong winds for a time, briefly gusting up to around 60 miles per hour across western Scotland. Through the day, those winds easing a little for some of us. We will see some outbreaks of rain at times. Temperatures in a range from 13 in Aberdeen to 17 degrees there in Plymouth. And then into the weekend, this chart tells the story. Low pressure firmly in charge. It's like being stuck in the spin cycle on the washing machine. You can see weather systems just spiralling around that area of low pressure. That means we will see bands of rain moving through at times, some brisk winds. It'll stay cool and autumnal. Sophie.
Ben, thank you. A reminder now of our main story this evening. After days of empty fuel pumps and queues on garage forecourts, the Prime Minister says there are signs the situation is starting to improve. That's all from the BBC News at 6. It's goodbye from me on BBC One. We join the BBC's news teams where you are. Goodbye.
Hello there and welcome to Sports Day. I'm Gavin Ramshaw. We're all set for a big night of Champions League action. El Clasico is the headliner in Paris as Manchester City take on PSG. Liverpool will wear black armbands when they take on Porto after the death of their former striker Roger Hunt. And the crowds will be back this weekend as 40,000 runners take on the London Marathon.
Yes, we're asking people to be sensible, reduce the numbers of people coming, but please support those runners.
Also coming up in the programme, a great start for Warwickshire. They punish Lancashire in the County Championship showpiece. Hello there and welcome along to Sports Day. It's another Champions League week across Europe. The standout tie is in the French capital tonight. Paris Saint-Germain against Manchester City. El Clasico is one of the labels given to this meeting of two of the richest clubs in the world, and that's not the only tie that catches the eye. Austin Harewood can take us through it all. Austin, Manchester City edged this one, didn't they, last season in the Champions League in the semi-finals, and they lost to Chelsea in the final. How's it looking for them this time?
Yeah, absolutely, Gav. That was the case. They were so close, weren't they, last time out? Because we know winning the Champions League has long been Pep Guardiola's ambition since arriving in Manchester. They were so close, weren't they, losing to Chelsea in the final last season? Well, as Gav said, City have strengthened, though, this summer. They paid a whopping £100 million, didn't they, for Jack Grealish. They're hoping he might be the key to take them that one step further this season. However, Paris Saint-Germain could be their toughest opponents along the way. They, of course, made the standout signing of the summer by bringing Lionel Messi to the French capital. But it's not really gone to plan so far. He struggled with some fitness issues. He's only played 90 minutes once this season, and he's still yet to score. But if there's anyone who knows just what the little magician is capable of, then it's, of course, Pep Guardiola. Together, they had one of the most successful player-manager combinations of the modern era, didn't they, at Barcelona? They won 14 trophies together, and that was in just 4 years. But since Pep left the Catalan club, Messi's become a bit of a thorn in his side. He scored 6 goals in 4 Champions League matches against teams managed by Guardiola, the most of any player in the competition. And now, of course, he's got these two alongside him as well. World Cup winner Kylian Mbappe and Brazilian superstar Neymar, of course. They've not quite fired just yet, but all of Paris will be desperately hoping tonight is the night that they do. Well, you can listen to all the drama unfold on BBC Radio 5 Live. Our football correspondent John Murray is in Paris for us.
Well, it's just a few months since Manchester City were last here for the first leg of the Champions League semi-final, so it's a different matter this time round when it's a group match, Michael.
Well, it is different. Obviously, it's not the be-all and end-all that they're going and win this game, but again, you want to set the tone. You're playing against the best players, and it's something the players will be looking forward to. It was such an exciting game here the first time. First half, I thought Manchester City didn't really come out. They were a bit unsure. Now they'll be ready for them, but fantastic players, fantastic occasion.
So Manchester City got the better of PSG last time round. This time round, they've made a number of additions.
There's only a couple. I think I'm guessing Messi, and that's the one everybody's waiting for to see if he's going to be fit. And we all want to see him on the pitch. It'd be incredible if he is. Yes, he's not got going for PSG at the moment, but world-class player we know, and we're looking forward to it.
One of City's strengths over the course of the last couple of seasons has been the defence. This is almost the ultimate test, isn't it?